Right. Says it
Hey,
live.
welcome everybody. This is episode 2 of the Decred Assembly. I am one of your hosts, Daniel. We have our other host, Tyler, over here, and special guest, Jake Yocom-Piatt today is with us, one of the founders of the Decred project. A lot of you know him as Batman. He does have a certain air of mystery that surrounds his name and his person. So we're very honored to have him on today. Very excited to talk to him, and really just he's every time we've ever spoken to Jake, it's always been so serious. So it's gonna be fun getting to hang out and just kind of ask him questions and pick his brain. I know everybody wants to know about his cat. We've all been wanting to shave it very badly. So without further ado, actually, we'll talk about the update first. The big news on Decred right now is this version 1 update coming up. That is the hard fork voting update. It is the big shebang. It is what everybody has been waiting on. It is what Decred is about, and that is actually about to happen. Now, the date for this hard fork voting update is going to be on the 25th. So that's definitely a date. You're going to want to update your clients. You're going to find a new tab in your wallet, new options in the CLI wallet, and we are going to be able to vote on multiple issues. Now, the two issues that are kind of in the spotlight this go around are an update to the SDIF, or the staking difficulty algorithm, which should stabilize the wild price swings that we've been seeing with the staking system. We already talked about this briefly, and I'll let Tyler kind of speak on why this is necessary in just a moment. But that's definitely a big deal. We're all very excited to have that as an option to vote on, and we all hope it passes very badly, as Dave stressed last time as well. Now, the other option we're going to be voting on is whether or not the development team should begin work on Lightning Network integration. Now, guys, this is no easy task. It is a lot of work. And a lot of times, when you see these monumental big upgrades, we're going to vote on if the work should be done, and then we will vote again on whether the software should go live on the mainnet. So I'm going to give you over to Tyler, and he can kind of tell you why he thinks, the SDIF algorithm is definitely something, we want to vote on and we want to pass, and why we're excited about it being our first upgrade. Tyler?
Yeah. Hey, guys. Yeah, so regarding the SDIF algorithm, I think it's really important to move to an algorithm that makes more sense than right now, because for anybody who's been buying tickets, you're able to buy tickets one day, and then it's like a 2 to 3 day wait. Everybody waits until the ticket price is a lot lower, and then there's a surge in everybody buying tickets all at once because the price is so cheap. Unfortunately, all these fees are going back to the proof of work miners, which is inevitably increasing and causing a lot of competition in the market that's not needed. And I think there's, I don't know, we talked about this on the last show, but moving to a new algorithm that makes sense, I think, I don't know, works. should be something that we all work towards. So I don't know, maybe Jake could actually speak to this better than I can.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think if there were one, the reason we settled on the stake difficulty for something to be in the first hard fork voting session is because it's the most demonstrably suboptimal piece of Decred currently. That is, all of us who participate in the staking system have to deal with these prices yo-yoing up and down and up and down. And then basically, because the algorithm moves the price too much with each interval adjustment, it can move up to a factor of 4x up and up to a factor of 1/4 downwards. Due to that, it has a very serious problem finding an optimal price. So for example, it'll hit a low point and you'll have a full ticket window, and then the price rockets upwards for 3 more intervals where no one is really interested in buying, and then it, of course, bottoms back out again. So this idea of discovering what the right price for a ticket is somewhat broken in the context of the existing SDIF algorithm. That's why we're really looking to replace it. And we've had a number of really great candidates that have been put forward by the community on GitHub, and we've had an opportunity to test a number of them using Dave Collins's test harness called a DCR stake sim. So, you know, we've spent a lot of time focusing on this for the past 2 months so that we get it as close to right as possible for when it goes up for vote here in a couple days.
Yeah, that is fantastic. And you know, Jake, as I said earlier, you know, everybody's kind of, you know, seen you give these serious talks, you know, very technical. You are one of the founders of Decred. What led you to be one of the founders? I mean, did you see, you know, a problem with Bitcoin? I mean, why are you here?
Well, I think that Bitcoin is obviously an extremely interesting system, which is why, you know, back in 2013 I started a project to do another ground up implementation of of the consensus daemon and a wallet that works with it. So, you know, I found it very fascinating, this idea that you could remove trusted third parties from, you know, the storage and transfer of value. I thought that was just fascinating, you know, having over the years dealt with, you know, banking issues of varying degrees myself. You know, I can speak to the fact that not having someone involved there and just having it entirely automated was, I mean, just super attractive to me. You know, if you've ever sat in a bank for 30 minutes just to make a wire transfer, you know what I'm talking about. And from there, I just, you know, even within the first year where we were doing this work, you know, from early 2013 until early 2014, it became pretty apparent that, you know, just like most open source projects, Bitcoin, you know, had a sort of a management problem, which is that most open source projects are run in the form of a benevolent dictatorship. And there's also a lot of, you know, there's a lot of personality, because when there's no money at stake, reputation is everything. So, you know, it just becomes a battle of wills, and I want credit. And, you know, it just became something that I think it shouldn't be. And I really wanted to sort of, you know, figure out how to move past this sort of, you know, governance problem I saw right in my face in, you know, say late 2013, early 2014.
Fantastic. And, you know, there is this kind of mystery in the air surrounding Company Zero. Can you speak on, you know, what Company Zero is and what its relation to Decred is?
Yeah, sure. Company Zero is really, it's a software company. We do software development, and, you know, in terms of what kind of software I'm interested in software that, you know, allows you to expand your individual liberties despite this, you know, climate of surveillance and, you know, sort of a police state that has risen up over the past several decades. So I feel like software is a very powerful, you know, avenue through which you can empower the individual in a way that, you know, reinforces and builds a better future, as opposed to, you know, I'm just another person trying to take advantage of everything and spy on you and get $10 out of that times a million or whatever. So that's really sort of what we're after with Company Zero. And, you know, I thought that Decred was, you know, I'd been working on this Bitcoin stuff for a while, but it really wasn't going the way I had hoped, which, you know, in terms of open source development, there's no money in it. And as much as I love to do it, it's not possible to sustain a company on just goodwill alone. So you need to sort of figure something out. So I sort of figured that, well, maybe if we can iterate on Bitcoin and do something interesting, well, then maybe we can, you know, try to fix some of these problems with Bitcoin that include things like funding. And as such, what Company Zero's role is in the context of Decred is that we built out the rails. You know, we built the first, you know, set of test tracks for everyone on a new kind of railroad, is sort of the way I envision it. And we've pitched this to everybody to be like, look, this railroad is like a lot better than these other ones that exist. And, you know, that's why you guys should, you know, help us build out this railroad. And that's kind of the spirit in which we've developed Decred, which is we're there to push it and get it out the door. But at the same time, you know, we're really doing this for the common good.
Gotcha. So yeah, regarding, I guess, because, you know, Company Zero also helped build BTC Suite, and you mentioned, like, you know, there's no money in this open source stuff. So you know, what motivated you guys to fund BTC Suite and then, you know, inevitably move into Decred? I mean, was that kind of the big plan, or?
Yeah, I mean, I saw Bitcoin, and I still see Bitcoin. It's an extremely interesting piece of technology. It basically, it's the most interesting thing to happen to finance in 500 years. You know, ever since double entry accounting was invented by, the Medicis back in Italy, it's pretty much the neatest thing to have happened. Some people would say, oh, electronic banking and online banking, it's so amazing. You still have to do everything through the same, trusted third parties. And the idea that you can at least even partially eliminate the trusted third party problem is really amazing. And it removes so many conflicts of interest that are present in the banking industry. And that's the kind of thing that drew me to it. But then, I got there, I was passionate, and then it was a question of, well, okay, what now? So we had sort of built out our own set of rails and said, somebody built us an amazing machine. And I was like, look, I built another machine that does the same thing. And people are like, well, so what? And then we figured, okay, let's change up the machine and really sort of do something that people, will pay attention to, and we can also simultaneously monetize.
Gotcha. And so like when we met with Dave last week, he mentioned that, building on, really building out the governance side of thing was, one of his biggest motivations for Decred. Is that what kind of drew you guys to, go from BTC Suite to launching your own altcoin, Decred, or, what was your kind of motivation behind moving into that project from BTC Suite to Decred?
Well, we just found it very frustrating to deal with I don't like to express a lot of ill will, but it was very difficult not to be an insider working in the context of Bitcoin, because the Bitcoin core group is one of the two de facto powers in the Bitcoin space. There's really two powers in the Bitcoin space. Either you're a proof of work miner and you have the formal say so by you can block soft forks and not signal for them, and those guys have a lot of one type of control, and then there's Bitcoin Core on the other side, which has all of the development control. So if you have a consensus, but it's not the consensus that's been coded by Bitcoin Core, it's not Bitcoin. And so basically getting into that, the only way that I saw that was even conceivable to gain any influence or basically have any real input into that system is to work on the Bitcoin Core code base, which we just weren't interested in doing. So it instead of it being an open system where everybody has a say, it's really a system where a handful, maybe a dozen people on the Bitcoin Core side and a dozen people on the mining side really have all the say. So we just figured there's got to be a better way to deal with this. And it felt like it didn't make any sense. There's this amazing technology. We're going to get rid of the trusted third parties in banking, and then we're totally going to stop there. So, I mean, that's basically what I see as having happened, which is that there's this amazing technology that allows you to disintermediate things. And rather than trying to build on that and really slam out all this extra infrastructure that does the same thing in different contexts, it just became about, well, we're in charge here. So it became sort of power for its own sake, as opposed to we've got something really amazing here and we can build it out. And so, I figured, I'm like, that's it. I'm out of here. We're going to build it out and go do it somewhere else.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Really cool, man. Now we've got actually a few questions from the, I guess we can call it the troll box here on YouTube. And we have someone asking, why do we have to lock these funds up when we vote? What's the purpose of that? And, why can't we just make it free? So my answer to that question is, you have to have skin in the game if you want to determine the future of the network. Otherwise, bad actors could purchase Decred, vote in a way that adversely affects the network, and then sell the Decred before it could impact their financial investment. So by locking your funds up, it's saying, okay, I'm so confident in my decision that I have made that I'm willing to lock these funds up for a specific period of time, so that if something does happen, because of my vote, that I feel it. I feel the consequences of my own decisions. Essentially, is that accurate, Jake? Or
I think that's pretty accurate. The idea is that if you read the original white paper by Adam McKenzie, that is the idea is proof of sacrifice, which is that if you want to obtain a subsidy for staking your coins, you have to basically be willing to accept what I casually refer to as proof of not at casino. You're not at the casino with your money. You're not gambling it. You're stabilizing the system, which is a positive thing. and you're voting, so you're giving input back into the system. So all of those things sort of justify there being a subsidy for you, taking that action, as opposed to, it's a poor system if the person who yells the loudest has the most voice. So we're trying to sort of go, how do we scale your voice? We scale your voice according to the number of coins you're willing to lock and basically de-casinoize at any given time.
Yeah, cool. And somebody else in the troll box asked, do you have to continuously purchase tickets if you would like to continuously stake? The answer to that question is yes. When your tickets are called to vote, and our block time is every 5 minutes. Every block, 5 tickets are called to vote, and if your ticket is one of those that is called to vote, you are rewarded for that action. So that's when you would receive the reward. Now, on average, this time is 28 days, but it can take up to 4 months during extremely rare circumstances. After that 4-month period of time, and this is kind of a common misconception, people have said, what happens? Do I lose the decred that I put up as collateral for my ability to vote? The answer is no, you do not lose this decred. You do lose the fee that you paid for the ticket, but your decred that's kind of held in reserve for the ticket will be refunded to you.
Yeah, and you lose that fee immediately. Like as soon as your ticket gets pulled into the pool,
that fee is gone.
That fee is gone. So.
And it's gone.
So Jake, I had another question. So, it seems like you guys really kind of nailed the right timing on, really building out a system of governance. And it seems like, things kind of all came together, near the right time. All this Bitcoin FUD is coming out, and, there's hard forks and Bitcoin Unlimited and SegWit still trying to get passed, and having this system of governance in place is really important. And it seems like working on all this stuff last year, no one really cared about. DBT, or Daniel remembers last year what it was like, being a big advocate for decred. And it seems like you guys really hit the nail on the hammer just in time.
Yeah, it's funny. Last year, everybody was laughing at us. They kept saying, DBT, like shut up about decred, or stop talking about it. We're sick of hearing you talk about it. And I was persistent. I kept up, and I wouldn't stop. And it looks like everybody who did believe and kind of saw this vision is having the last laugh now. So I think. Yeah, it's cool.
So Jake, I guess I just want to know, how did you guys kind of know that this was just, I don't know, you guys put a lot of eggs in this basket. You guys have been working pretty hard for the past year just to get to this release that we're coming up to now. Can you just tell us more about that kind of decision that you guys made and what drew you to design?
That's an unusually good question, right? So how did we see this coming? So as I said earlier, because we got in there and we wrote an alternative daemon to Bitcoin D, we had a much different perspective and experience on things. Like even if you're an expert level Bitcoin user, you don't have to deal with these sort of detail or sort of I want to say highly granular things. You're not that close to it. You see Bitcoin, you're like, oh, it's great, it's amazing, and this and that. And then once you learn more about it, you're like, okay, it's still pretty cool. And then after a while, you spend 6 to 12 months in it, and you're like, man, this is kind of messed up, and you don't get that kind of window on it unless you're very close to it. And if you're just interested in the money, or you're an investor and you're just hustling, you're like trying to find the best place for your capital, you also don't see that because you get blinded by things like, oh, Bitcoin's doing great, so Bitcoin must be great. And it's like, well, Bitcoin's pretty cool, but it's a whole lot of it, you could have just left it as is, and I think it still would have been just as great. And I think that, seeing where things were going was a function of the fact that we got in there and saw things that other people didn't see. That is, we saw how the governance had serious problems firsthand, when we basically learned that, you know, what is Bitcoin, you know, in terms of the consensus code is really dictated by a small number of people. And, you know, unless you cozy up to and politic with those people, you'll never really have a say in Bitcoin and, you know, what its consensus is. So we had this window on this back in 2013, and other people were like, oh no, you're crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. I know these guys on the internet, and it's like A, and it's no, and you're wrong. And I go, well, I'm sorry, bro, it's like B. And that experience gave me the ability to go, you know what, I see where this train is heading, and I am getting off at this. I'm getting off early. I'll walk there. I'll get on it, get in a car, whatever. This train is not my train. So that's really how we saw where things were going, so that now we have a timely solution. You know, as you may have noticed, getting that timely solution in place took a couple years of hard work.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
that's how we kind of got ahead of things, which is that we got really close. We zoomed in way more than most people would, and then it's like, whoa, this is really a lot different than it looks like on the surface. And, you know, then that gave us the ability to sort of, you know, change gears and get into the right place at the right time. I felt like we were in the right place, just not quite at the right time.
Well, you know, you could argue that it was the exact right time as well. I think the amount of foresight that you guys had was absolutely incredible, you know, especially with everything that's come to light. I mean, they can't pass SegWit. You know, they were having issues with Litecoin as well on the Bitcoin network. And, you know, just these governance issues that have presented themselves, you know, have created a perfect environment for Decred to thrive, which is really fantastic. Now, in the troll box again, you know, we have a couple of questions. You know, somebody mentioned that there may have been kind of a slowdown on the network today. Would you care to, you know, elaborate on that little hiccup? You know, was it really a big deal? Was it not? You know, what exactly happened, and how was the situation rectified? Because the network is moving again.
Sure thing. Yeah. It's a bit of an embarrassing situation in the sense that, you know, nobody ever likes to admit that, you know, something broke and it was their fault. But I'm going to be un-American here and take some responsibility on the dome. And somebody's going to kick in my door. Oh my God. What had happened was is that it was a question of coordination. Really, that Decred's consensus code really didn't have any problems, but there was, in order to do this hard fork voting that we're coming up on here, there is an extra version that we added that that mining code, both from the pool software side and from the mining client software side, was not supported. Basically, what we did is we added a 4-byte field called the stake version, and the idea here is that in order for us to do a hard fork vote, first. Or I believe these two things can actually happen independently, but basically two things have to happen before a hard fork vote can happen. One is that the block version must increment to the latest version. And what the block version incrementing means is it means that proof of work miners have upgraded to the latest, you know, the latest release. Then there is something called a vote version, which when you are a proof of stake miner, that is, you know, a stakeholder and you're voting, your votes are versioned according to the version of the wallet that's casting the votes. Now, after a certain number of those wallets in a fixed interval goes up to the most recent version, then the stake version also increments. So there's the block version that increments, then the stake version. And what had happened is that we were on block version 3, but we were on stake version 0. Then, just very recently, in fact, this morning at 5 a.m., unbeknownst to me, we jumped to stake version 3 from stake version 0, which is good. Now, what that means is that the majority of proof of stake miners are running version 080 or later. And that's great because that means people are running very close to the latest software. But there's a downside to this, which is that we had not realized that this stake version field was actually manipulated by the mining pool software and the mining client software. So we had expected that, you know, when the stake version 3 bumped in the header, it would just bump in the header and then it would be propagated straight through the mining pool to the clients. And then the clients wouldn't touch it either. And then they'd mine on, you know, on a header with a version 3 block, or excuse me, stake version 3. And then they'd pass the solution back and everything would be hunky dory. But in fact, what ended up happening is that without the way that I want to say it's the stratum. Now you have to forgive me here because my familiarity with the mining pool software is relatively low. But the stratum server will basically zero out these extra bytes unless you explicitly tell them do not zero these bytes out. So what ended up happening was DCRD would be queried by by the mining pool software and go, I'm going to do a get work request. The get work request comes back and it says it's a version 3, it's a version 3 get work response. But then the mining pool software zeroed out the version 3 and then passed that down to the miners. And then further on top of this, the mining code assumed that the data in that field was 0, and it actually explicitly zeroed that part out as well. So basically, so what happened here was once we tripped to stake version 3, which is great because everybody's upgraded, it meant that there was basically a problem with the mining pool software and the mining client software that was sussed out, and it led to all of that infrastructure going offline because basically what happened was then mining pools were getting bad shares back from from clients, and that led to basically mining pools going grinding to a halt. So while the Decred consensus code and the Decred chain kept moving reliably, the mining infrastructure that attached to it was overwriting values that they shouldn't have been. And we take some responsibility for that. We should have been more proactive with the mining pools and the mining clients to make sure that all of this infrastructure went smoothly. But when we had tested on testnet, we did not test with this, with the mining pool infrastructure, namely because it's closed source. So just, we acknowledge that we should have done a better job in terms of notifying people about this, but it's not a catastrophic failure. Basically, it was an oversight because we didn't realize what the limitations of the mining pool and mining client software were, and then failed to anticipate that in advance.
Yeah.
Well, and now enough people have upgraded where the blocks are starting to churn out again.
So do you foresee this ever being an issue again in the future? How can we prevent this from happening again?
This particular issue is very unlikely to come up again because basically once this once the mining pool software, which has all been updated as to my knowledge, and the mining client software, which is still in the process of being updated, once those are updated to not overwrite the stake version field, then we won't have this problem anymore. We can have an upgrade and it'll turn over just fine now that this modification has been made. It obviously would have been ideal to not have this made at the last minute this morning. I mean, I feel like today was like it was a -1 Sunday for me. It's like after working in the morning, it's like time to go back to work in the evening. So that's the net result for me is it's one of those, oh, this is not a good Sunday. But that's, I'm glad that it's been resolved, but I totally understand it was a big deal and people were understandably concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do appreciate you addressing that. People, and as Jake said earlier, it is embarrassing to admit, that you were wrong about something and, that you kind of dropped the ball. But, that's something that we've seen time and time again with the Decred team. They've always been upfront and honest, and that's part of the reason why I'm here. You're never going to see any shady business or kind of weird stuff going on with these guys. So we have a question, coming from the audience that was answered last time, but, we'll briefly answer it again. Why is, or how is SegWit not a top priority for Decred? Well, as Dave said last time, Decred already has SegWit essentially, or the most important part, which is non-malleable transactions. So we would, I guess, build upon what we already have to implement the Lightning Network if that vote passes. So that's kind of why, you don't hear why is SegWit not a priority for Decred, because we already have the most important part of SegWit. So moving forward, Tyler, do you want to?
Sure. Yeah, so somebody else has a question in the chat. What thought went into choosing the balance between proof of work and proof of stake? And how is it balanced evenly? So in regards to the design, I've already heard the spiel on this.
Lou?
Oh,
Yeah,
Hello?
is he still? Are you still there, Tyler?
Got that latency.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm here.
that lag, son. So essentially, what? Why do we have the particular balance of or the particular distribution of fees? Or not fees of rewards in the block. Was there any kind of formula that led you guys to allocate specific amounts to the development subsidy, POS, and then POW miners?
Now, we argued about that a lot prior to release. Now, here is my logic for, to some extent, I think we all agreed on the rough ratios. But once it got down to the nitty gritty of, well, it should be this percent, oh, it should be that percent. Here's what I'll take responsibility again here, which is I was the one who eventually was just like, that's it, we're choosing the numbers. Here are the numbers, we're done. And the justification goes like this. Proof of work is 60% and proof of stake is 30% because of the following. We have, I figured that the development organization, the logic would go like this. If you can't do it with 10% of the funds, you probably shouldn't be doing it. And I sort of, I take this as a history lesson from, the United States back in the 1800s and so on, before income taxes got super out of control, is the income tax was relatively low, and there was a huge amount accomplished with a relatively low income tax. And then in times of war and around World War I, the tax rate became really absurdly high. And I just feel like 10% is the most that we can reasonably put aside for the development organization without going, okay, that's just a waste of money. Then we work backwards from there to go, okay, we got 90% left over. What are we going to do with it? And the reason that I said a 2-to-1 ratio for proof of work to proof of stake is that proof of work requires actually buying physical computer hardware and running it and having the infrastructure to run it. And, so you got to have the electrical, you got to have the cooling, you got to have all this stuff that you actually have to pay for. So the way I felt is that, there were some arguments for, proof of stake should have a larger share of this. But I felt that it would be too much relative to the proof of work miners, who need to be compensated to some extent for the hardware that they procure and maintain as part of their job. And ultimately, the reason that we set proof of stake to 30% and not 40 or 50% is that having it too high leads to an unrealistic semi-passive rate of return. That is, you can lose money staking. You need to know what you're doing if you're setting up solo staking. But if you know what you're doing, it's a way to make a steady, pretty healthy return. And in the in the near term, if the proof of stake were 40 or 50%, the rate of return for staking would have been absurdly high in my opinion. So that's why we sort of throttled it down to 30 and just ended up with a 2-to-1 ratio. There were some arguments that proof of stake should have been higher, and I was like, well, it should be a little lower, but not too much lower, and that's why I set it at 30. So, in the future, I prefer not to change it, just because, the mechanics and incentives for changing that they get a little mixed up. But that's the justification for why it was set that way initially.
Well, I happen to quite like the reward structure. I think it's enough, but not too much. It's like the bowl of porridge in Goldilocks. It's just right. And it really is. I feel like enough to incentivize proof of work miners, as well as the proof of stake miners. To want to reinvest their profits, want to continue, contributing to the success of the Decred network. Which is good. I think you guys put a lot of thought into that, and I think that it works out. Now, something, that people don't realize is that the rate of inflation for Decred, I believe, is it every 3 weeks, it adjusts and it's actually lower?
That is correct. The way it works is every 6,144 blocks, which as you mentioned is roughly 3 weeks in Decred land, the total block subsidy scales down by a factor of 100 over 101. So that's roughly a 1% reduction every 3 weeks.
So, rather than have these dramatic halvening events like Bitcoin and other coins, there's kind of a decay model where, it slowly degrades over time, and eventually you realize, oh my gosh, 3 years ago we were mining and creating a lot more Decred than we are now. pretty crazy, for us long-termers to be able to think, in the future, and when we were like, oh, do you guys remember when we were staking, over 1 Decred per block? That was insane. And I know all of us are stakeholders, especially Jake. So everybody,
professional bag holder is the title I prefer.
He's a professional bag holder of Decred. He is here to stay. And I believe in the agreement, you're not allowed to sell any of your Decred at all until, is it February 2018?
That is correct.
Right.
I'm in this for the long run. I mean, even after February 2018, I doubt I'm going to sell any coins. So, that's where I'm at with, with what I've agreed to. So my agreement is to, until February 2018, none of these coins will hit an exchange.
Sure. And I think that's very honorable, considering, I've heard in the past you say that you personally are financing this project with over $50,000 per month in development costs. So that is very generous of you to, hold on to those funds when you could be kind of reimbursing yourself and paying yourself back, for everything that you have put into the project. That's pretty impressive, and that's why we call you Batman.
Well, I mean, how can we build the future if we don't save for tomorrow, right? I mean, you gotta spend it all right now. That's just not how I am. I still dress like I'm a graduate student, so that's life for me. I live humbly and I sit in front of a computer a lot.
Yeah, we all love our computer monitors, and I'm sure that's why a lot of us are here right now. Now, we've had a couple of interesting questions in the troll box, and if you don't want to comment on this, that is your prerogative, and you don't have to. But everybody,
it's a troll box.
Yeah, it is a troll box. Everybody is dying to just have a few little breadcrumbs about Project Charybdis or Charybdis or however you would like to pronounce it. Is that still going to be a total massacre, or are we going to drop a few hints here today?
I can give you a little bit of an allusion to what it's going to involve, which is that Project Charybdis is my spin on how we can take the First Amendment back and do it in a context where it's monetized. And I have a very serious problem with a lot of things that go on the internet. For example, censorship, in particular, soft censorship. There's a lot of censorship that goes on. People complain about things like the Bitcoin subreddit, but it gets so much worse in so many other contexts when it comes to censorship, and I can't stand it. So it's a stab at knocking that model down with some transparency. So I won't get into the details, but
say no more.
Those are some broad strokes.
Say no more. It is good. Everybody has been wanting to, kind of have a few breadcrumbs for a while, and we mentioned Charybdis in February, I believe. So you guys can start speculating now and start formulating what you think it is. But that's all you get for now, unfortunately. It is going to be crazy knowing these guys. So, do you have a cat? For one, do you actually have a cat? We've never seen it. And if you do, what is its name?
I do not have a cat. For some,
what the
talk about a decoy? What I can tell you is that when I was younger, I grew up with our family had cats from when I was 0 until I was 21, and that basically, I've always loved cats, and I get along with people's cats when I go to their houses. But I like to have furniture that doesn't get destroyed, so that's where I'm at with cats. Which is, I'll be so nice to them, and I love cats, but it's like I know there's a constant ongoing battle between cats and furniture, especially nice furniture. So that's that's where I'm at with the cat. So there is no cat to be shaved. If there were, I might shave it just for entertainment's sake. Maybe I could rent a cat and we shave that one.
Well, I know a lot of people are going to be disappointed by that answer because everybody for quite some time has thought that you have this magnificent beast of a cat. So
are a bunch of human rights activists going to kick in my door now?
Yeah, pretty much.
And liberate the cat and shoot me?
Here comes Here comes the whatever it's called, cat agency.
Cat social justice warriors.
Yeah, cat social justice warriors.
Hey,
Yeah.
can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, I've been able to hear you the whole time.
Okay, so
Have you
it's
been
not lagging? No,
No,
I haven't.
it's pretty good.
Okay, awesome.
So, we know a little bit more about Charybdis at this point in time. I think it would be cool if, Jake, if you feel comfortable, what is your background? You seem to know a lot about a lot of things, and, are you a computer science guy? Are you, into, what do you come from? Why are you who you are?
Well, okay, so to give you a brief summary about what my background is that in my in undergraduate and graduate school I studied physics. I was fascinated with high energy theoretical physics in particular and string theory, and I spent a lot of time taking accelerated math classes, and then I worked with a couple professors at University of Illinois where I was an undergrad and never got anything published, and then I went to grad school and at University of Chicago, and that's where I got this sort of technical domain knowledge. Is I did math till most people just wouldn't care to do it, and I really enjoyed science, but once I got closer to the finish line, I saw it was a lot more political than I ever expected it to be, which I feel kind of dumb about in retrospect. Like I should have figured out academia, that's going to be political as hell. But so that's how I accumulated all this knowledge. But then ultimately I just sort of left and did my own thing. And so between grad school and now, I've done a whole bunch of different things, chemical engineering. I've done a bunch of order fulfillment, all kinds of things that most people would find incredibly boring. I've done a few things that people would probably think are very exciting, but that's sort of how I got here. So I have a lot of experience, breaking things down on paper into small pieces, and then real world experience running businesses. So, the combination of those two makes me pretty well suited to overseeing an engineering team, and software engineering works. I get it. And, I've always been a security software nerd, since, I don't know, sometime in 04 or 03, I started, running OpenBSD, and then I basically became my own system administrator. I did that, as a job, full-time job for a while. And then I turned it into something that I turned it into an attempt at a business. So I did that back with CipherTight. That was an utter failure. It was like a high security online backup service. So I know a lot of things about computer security that other people don't care to know or don't want to know or think that I don't know or whatever. And, I bring a different perspective to the table. I'm not trained as a computer scientist. I'm not trained as a system administrator. I am self-trained as a system administrator, and I was educated as somebody who potentially would have be an academic as a career, and that just didn't work out. So I was able to take that toolbox with me and put it to use elsewhere.
So, as somebody who is very concerned about his security, if anyone, if people don't realize this, Jake is actually on your wife's computer, correct? Because yours have their cameras and microphones taped and stripped.
That's right, and it's a constant battle about, oh no, honey, you can't remove the microphones and cameras from my devices, and and get that phone away from me. Those things have microphones in them, and they're always on. Things like that. So I'm a lot more computer security conscious than most people are. And what I find challenging and entertaining about it at the same time is that, 10 years ago, if I was saying these things, which in a lot of cases I was, people think I'm an absolute lunatic. They're like, oh man, your cell phone could never listen to you. Nobody has time to do that. And it's like, oh, your video camera never could be spying on in your own house. And then it's like 10 years later, it's like, who was right and who wasn't? They're like, I don't remember you saying that, man. So, that's where I'm at with, computer security, which is that most people have this very consensus idea of what you can and can't do with a computer. And most of them do not realize how completely wrong they are. It's like, I've had numerous arguments with people I've known over the years about things like, when I said every single phone call that's ever been made is recorded somewhere underground on a hard drive, people are like, oh, you're totally nuts. And it's like, that would fit in, a small data center. And it's like, so guess what? This, this Google Hangout is most definitely being recorded somewhere, and I acknowledge that. And I don't know. I mean, I live with it, so I don't know.
Well, we did that on purpose.
Oh!
Oh, wait, this is live. This is being recorded. But kind of building on what you just said, Jake. Company Zero actually developed a secure communications technology. Would you care to kind of talk about that for a moment, and how it works and what it does? And
oh, sure. This is a direction I didn't expect things to go. Interesting. So because I'm about 2 or 3 steps ahead of what most people consider to be secure, there's a lot of tools out there for secure communications, and the problem comes down to who's going to get paid. That is, say when I was making CipherTight, it was a question of who is willing to pay, or who's willing to monetize one of these services. And the issue that came up was basically that every service that that ended up having a lot of money poured into it basically had to be monetized and monetizable, and that involved things like running on mobile and so on. And let me give you an example. I think Signal is a very well thought out application. Trevor Perrin from that, he created this thing that's referred to as the double ratchet that encrypts every message. It's a one-way ratchet. It's asynchronous. It allows you to encrypt every message going back and forth between 2 parties asynchronously using different encryption keys. It's great technology, but Signal runs on your phone as an app, and I don't trust a phone. There's no amount of money you can pay me to trust a phone. So that's basically so what somebody's telling me is there's a software, it runs on your phone, and it keeps everything secure on a device that's completely insecure. And that really got to me. So I basically wanted to move the peg further for people who were a little bit more practical, but who didn't feel comfortable using these apps on phones. And that's where sort of ZKC came from, which is I wanted something that did the that made heavy use of the double ratchet, because that's great. It's great infrastructure. But it didn't have the same attack surface where somebody can basically hit a couple buttons on a console somewhere underground and then be listening to your phone or your computer. So basically, I wanted to build a communications tool that would run on a lot of platforms, but not focus on mobile, and also sort of ratchet the security up as high as I reasonably could without too much complexity. And so that's sort of the idea with ZKC, which is that I think that if I had to summarize it in a sentence. And this, it's hard for people to parse this sometimes, but you can't prove that they aren't listening. As crazy as that may sound, that's the whole point of encrypting all your communications, which is that ultimately all of these things are archived somewhere by someone. And so the only way to prove that they're not, transparently all readable is to encrypt everything. So that's sort of my justification for ZKC, which is that, why send it out? Why send it out over the internet when everybody can read it?
And what exactly does ZKC stand for?
Zero knowledge communications. The idea being that it compartmentalizes the data that's being transmitted between various parties. When let's say you and I are communicating, both you and I know what each of the other said, right? So that that's about as tightly compartmented as we can get it. However, in a lot of cases, the server that sits in the middle can see some of it. They might be able to man in the middle of your keys. There's a whole bunch of sort of attack models that could come up with a trusted third party, which is a server in this case. But what we tried to do with ZKC was make it so we don't even trust the infrastructure. So even the server can't read anything that's being sent. For example, if 2 people have access to a ZKC server, not even the administrator of the server can read anything that's being said between the 2 parties. The only thing that they can glean is the metadata that say, you and I have been communicating. And, that's sort of, why it's zero knowledge. We just tried to minimize the number of parties that knew about each of these conversations. So basically, with a single server, let's say you had 100 clients in a single server, you could have 100 different chats, and most people only ever see one chat. They don't see any of the other things going on. The server administrator could see some metadata, but that's about where it ends. And if you start attaching Tor and throwing in mixers and things like that, it becomes even harder to see what's going on. So that's sort of, why it's the zero knowledge communications.
Yeah, pretty cool, man. And I think privacy is something that's on the roadmap, and you guys have already said time and time again that you do have kind of an innovative, different way of looking at privacy, and we're not going to discuss that until it kind of comes out and it's fully developed and it's done, which is exciting to me. I kind of want to know what the heck you guys are up to and what you're working on. But of course, I'm gonna have to wait like everyone else. But it is nice to see that you are as concerned with privacy as you are, and that you not only are concerned, but you have extensive experience with securing communications and your own, I guess, kind of computers and things like that in your own servers. So I think everybody's very excited to kind of see what you guys are working on. I know I am.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that because we're going to be surprising people a bit, I hope that we don't disappoint anybody. But at the same time, I mean, people compete like really serious. I mean, even take this recent paper attacking Monero's anonymity. That when I saw that paper, I was like, man, it is getting real in the Whole Foods parking lot.
Cutthroat. Very cutthroat.
Mm-hmm.
How much longer do we have to wait? When's
privacy?
Yeah.
So in terms of rough road, like immediate roadmap things, there's a few things that we're going to be doing right after 1.0. So the first thing we're going to do is that it's going to take about a month or two for the vote tallying to begin. And then when the vote tallying begins, we can get a sense of where things stand with people wanting us to do the LN integration. In the meantime, we're going to start moving some of the pieces, assuming that the LN vote will go yes, but we're not going to do an enormous amount of work before that moves. So basically, there's talk to begin work on syncing LN, but not actually do any of the syncing. Some of this work would be done in BTC Suite. So it doesn't lead to direct action on the DCRD code base, but we would sync from that code base to DCRDs. Then parallel with that, we're also going to be designing the proposal system. The proposal system is basically going to be it's an off-chain ledger of data that is episodically anchored on chain. So we're going to be going through how that's designed, what the right way to build it is, what's the wrong way, and we're going to open up discussion about that after we have sort of a proof of concept ready to start discussing with people. And then, once the proposal system is in place and we get to the point where we're starting to tune it down, the system is up. Then it's a question of going, what is the proposal system doing right and what is it doing wrong? And we have to put some guardrails on it, because otherwise, what's to stop somebody from showing up and going, I want to buy a yacht and put Decred logo all over it, and then people vote for it, and then it's like, oh, well, there's no $2 million yacht floating around.
Unfortunately, I think that would get my vote.
yeah, exactly. But the point being, the purpose of these development funds is really to act as sort of a fund for building infrastructure. In order for Decred to be successful as a project, there's a lot of things that have to happen with it. I mean, right now we have the luxury of having a lot of buzz, and our size is relatively small compared to the amount of buzz and speculation that goes on with our tokens. But in order to really get in there and start integrating things and making a difference and really creating closed loops in Decred so people can pay and both be paid and pay in Decred, that takes a lot of work. And I recognize that. That's why we're putting these funds aside, so that we can spend them later. So the idea is that it's sort of an infrastructure account. So it's like, you want to build highways, you want to build railroads, you want to build like drinking fountains. That's the kind of thing that we're thinking about here, albeit in the context of cryptocurrency.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Was there another part to the question? I'm sorry, I went on for a bit there.
I don't know. What were we talking about?
It's Sunday.
Yeah.
Privacy's coming.
Yeah, I was just,
okay. In terms of the roadmap, so after the proposal system the basic proposal system goes into production, we'll be fiddling with that for another several months so that we get it right, so that we can avoid things like, oh, I want to buy a yacht and put the logo on it. We don't want that to happen. So we need to basically put guardrails on that. With that, we can do that simultaneous with the work being done on the privacy system.
Is it gonna cost Decred to make a proposal?
Yes, and the way we'll do this is as follows: is that we're going to start with a low barrier to entry. See who shows up. If people start showing, sending spam like, "Oh, I want the yacht," and like all this dumb stuff starts coming, we'll gradually dial up how much people have to pay to submit a proposal. And then the other thing that actually was proposed by Dave C. was that if a proposal gets through and it doesn't receive some certain minimum percentage of yes votes, the fee you paid is not refunded. But if it's reasonably well received by people, like let's say somebody puts up like kind of a joke proposal,
shaving the cat.
Yeah, exactly, shaving the cat or whatever. As long as it's in good humor and people are being fun about it. I think that the idea is that we want people to pay as a deterrent to people to just spam it and like cram the suggestion box with like obscene stuff like eat up or whatever.
So and those fees, where are those fees going to go? Are they going to get?
We would probably have the fees go to like some sort of special escrow account with the dev org or something along those lines. So it would just sort of circle back. This wouldn't be. It isn't really a means of generating revenue so much as a spam prevention, countermeasure.
Sure.
And I even think it might be an interesting idea to explore if a proposal is passed, with flying colors, maybe the fees are refunded.
Well, that's exactly what I was saying, which is that as long as you get above a certain, minimum threshold, what would happen is that then the fees would be refunded.
Yeah, I think that's the right way to do it. I mean, if you have a good idea and and you're willing to put up your Decred to put that idea forward, it's cool that you are going to be able to get it back. And just for putting your idea out there, you shouldn't have to just lose it. If your idea is actually a good idea.
Yeah,
exactly.
And maybe you could talk real. Sorry. Maybe you could talk real quick after while I'm on this train of thought about the dev subsidy, because I'm sure a lot of people just think like, oh, this dev subsidy just goes back to the devs and that's what's paying for development and stuff. And I think somebody in the troll box asked a question about the pre-mine that happened in the beginning, and maybe you can speak about all of that stuff and like the internal economics of how the project is kind of internally being funded and where the dev subsidy is being spent right now and so forth.
Sure thing. So what anyone who watches the dev subsidy is aware of is that we've backed up quite an enormous amount of Decred in there. I'll be honest, I don't even check it on the regular just because I only spend it at the end of every month when I pay the contractors. So the way it works is that the dev subsidy is not owned by Company Zero. The dev subsidy is held by a separate LLC, and the idea is that the dev subsidy has only been used to date to pay external contractors who are not Company Zero for services they've rendered. And this is typically comprised of like a handful of things, which is there's marketing, there's documentation. We have an enormous amount of documentation to write, and we've had a number of contractors working on that for several months now. And so Daniel here is one of our marketing contractors. And then we have some development contractors, and the development contractors, write software. There's a user Rada, and then ChatJC, and then a lot of the other development work is done by Company Zero. Which now that work to date has been done pro bono. That is, I recognize that in order to bootstrap Decred, a certain amount of TLC needed to be put into it, and the money to pay for that had to come from somewhere. But because the exchange rate was so low early on, we could not self-fund, via that route. Not to mention the optics of it just didn't feel right to me. The idea that all of the dev subsidy out of the box goes right back to Company Zero, I didn't like it. So I figured, it would do the project some good, because I knew I was going to be around for a year, but not everybody else did. And, I just piled it high, knowing that, as long as we kept running the ball and doing a decent job, that the exchange rate would likely go up, at which point those funds would become substantial and significant and allow us to basically do a lot of other things that, when the exchange rate was $1 or $2, it really didn't allow us to do. So, my monthly spend is somewhere between $60,000 and $70,000 a month on development costs. And I take no salary. I've never taken any salary, and I don't plan to. But I am I'm a majority owner of Company Zero LLC. So the funds from the pre-mine were based on the fact that in order to build the Decred infrastructure, the Decred code on top of BTC Suite, that cost roughly $300,000. And that amount was the amount that I ended up attributing to Company Zero. The amount of money that we would have needed to, to stuff in Company Zero's pocket to pay for the whole of BTC Suite would have been absurdly high. It wouldn't have made any sense. It would have been, like a couple $1 million. And I didn't think that was fair in the context of where I expected the exchange rates to start and the amount of, coins I wanted to pre-mine. So basically we tried to keep the pre-mine small and give just enough pre-mine so that, we were incentivized to keep the ball rolling for another, several years, as opposed to, oh, we're just going to show up here and pump and dump this and walk away. So that's sort of the mechanics of the breakdown. So basically, the DevOrg funds have not been touched by Company Zero, but I do administrate those funds. And in the long term, what the idea is that with all of this infrastructure, the proposal system, and then ultimately connecting the proposal system to the DevOrg funds, is that infrastructure will essentially replace me. We're going to build smart contracts to replace what I do for the dev. I'm going to replace myself with smart contracts, but non-Turing complete ones.
And eventually, I imagine some of the dev subsidy will be utilized to help continue to fund Company Zero's.
To pay Company Zero for development work, and I know some people are interested in Decred doing some charitable things as well. Kind of giving back to the community. So those are all things that we could vote into existence.
So I did forget the other thing. So you brought up a good point about my plan was is that I wanted to have Company Zero do the dev work to propel Decred to the point where it was self-funding. At that point, Company Zero would then become a contractor for Decred and basically get paid to cover development costs. And with the way the exchange rate's going, we're well beyond the point where the income for the development organization far exceeds the development costs that that I've been running up. So I think the milestone I had set internally was after 1.0.0 is out on mainnet and hard fork voting is a feature, at that point I'll start to actually bill the dev org for the work done.
Gotcha. Awesome. And I think circling back to my original question, when are we going to see privacy? When are we going to get privacy on Decred?
Work on privacy really will begin, I think, let's say, I'd say before October, but probably not by much. The idea being we really want to get that proposal system in place and tuned down. And the tuning of the proposal system can go on while the privacy system is worked on. The idea being that, the privacy system, we got to get the proposal thing working. Then we go, okay, somebody, a number of people will have to supervise that. And then we can start working on the next piece of infrastructure. Building out these pieces of infrastructure takes a lot of work. We put a lot more thought and time and energy into this than other projects have. But we're building this infrastructure slow. We're not doing it all in one big bang to be like, oh, you can do A and B and C and D and E and F. We're going, okay, you can do A, and we're going to be very careful about B. And so we're building backwards to the point where there's no. Where I'm replaced by things that run on silicon.
Yeah. That's
sweet.
Awesome.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. So and somebody says, have you guys thought about doing aggressive advertising campaigns with extra funds? I know that this is a funny topic for you guys because I mean, you guys just don't chill. You guys like don't chill your shit. You guys, continuously kept having these periodic releases about monthly for the past year. And we saw very little marketing until recently, until after you guys released your roadmap, and maybe you can talk about kind of your marketing plans and your thoughts on shilling shitty projects versus building great projects. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. Maybe Daniel should take that away.
Yeah, there you go.
It's amazing to me how so back in like January, I don't know how many people know about the backstory. In January, Daniel was like one of our investors, aka bag holders, and he was super upset, because he's like, "Oh, this exchange rate is tanking. It's crap. What the hell is this?" And he got really upset. And what was really the funny thing to come out of this was, with even a little bit of work on his part, without before anybody else got involved, the exchange rate starts to turn around in like almost no time flat. So there is a lot of power in marketing in terms of drawing people in and getting investors and getting people excited about this project. So in the long run, I'm one to not blow it out on advertising. I just don't want to sink too much money into it all at once. It's easy to, if you go too hard at anything out of the box, it's very easy to waste a lot of money, as I've learned personally in the past.
And, as Dave said in our talk last week, the technology and the software speaks for itself, and the last thing that we want to do for our investors, many of them are long-term holders, is create this wonderful environment that's conducive to day and swing traders. I know you guys would like to see us drop $20,000 on a crazy ad campaign, just because we can. The current value of the funds and the dev organization is whatever, $3 million right now. So, there is money to spend, but Jake has been a fantastic custodian of that money. He has not spent what is not necessary. We want that money to be available for the organization when we are able to vote on how to spend it. And I think everybody will appreciate that money is there and is not spent when we can all come together and decide on how we should use it. So just moving forward, we are doing a PR campaign right now. It's through PR Newswire. They do a lot of cryptocurrency and, Bitcoin advertising and things of that nature. You guys, I'm sure, have seen the PR release on Yahoo Finance, among other networks. So it is, we are doing what we can to get the word out, not to mention we heavily market on Twitter. We have a very strong community there. Just some statistics from the last month. Our Twitter profile generated 40,000 profile visits and over 480,000 impressions, which is quite impressive, I would say, for a cryptocurrency. And we don't post all the time. We do post often, but it's not, like a constant volley of shit posting like my personal account. So
with only a touch of trolling every now and then.
No, only a touch, and only a touch of instigation. But you have to have fun, and we'll start trying to wrap this up soon, because last episode was 2 hours long, and a few people did express that was a little lengthy. Although Dave was a fantastic guest, and we got some excellent content out of that. But marketing moving forward is something that we are going to be able to decide on as a community. And our current marketing efforts, the strategy has been kind of grassroots, bring people in who are interested in holding this, token, bring people in who want to contribute to the ecosystem, bring people in who want to vote and who want to stake. As holders, you don't want us to create a bunch of hype and all these promises and things like that, and have the day traders and the swing traders bid the price up on the exchange, and you create this environment where the price goes up and then it goes down and then it goes up and it goes down, and a lot of you sell the top and then you're mad and you try to buy back lower and now you have less decred. It's just a bad situation. So moving forward, and this is just kind of the nature of the beast, when we have the ability to vote and allocate funds, if you guys want to drop 50 grand on marketing and that's what everybody wants to do, I think, while I don't agree with it, that's what we're going to do. So for now, I think just being as conservative as possible has been an excellent strategy, and relying on the community to kind of initiate this grassroots movement has been an excellent strategy. As you've seen, our price has grown over 2,000% this year, which eclipses really any other cryptocurrency project that is considered to be legitimate.
And they tried to
Poloniex.
They tried to leave us out on CoinDesk in that CoinDesk article.
Yeah, and then the Brazilian community got after them.
Did you see the comments on the article?
Yeah.
There's just like 20 comments long, all about Decred.
Yeah. Where's Decred? Where's Decred? So,
they had to rewrite the article, and
they did.
They added us in.
And we have had issues, being on like CoinDesk and Cointelegraph. I think as I said last time, we are an underdog, and people don't want to see us succeed, but it's the efforts of the community that are propelling this project forward. And without the community, and without you guys being here, and being here to support myself and Jake, and I know Dave just loved his interview last week. He loved getting to talk and hang out with you guys. We're going to have him on again at some point. But your support means everything. And if you guys can continue to give everyone that support, and it keeps everybody optimistic, it keeps everybody working hard. And we do have a lot to be optimistic about. And just to kind of summarize things, you got a few breadcrumbs about Charybdis today, which I'm very excited about. We kind of learned a better time frame in the anonymous technology, and also kind of gained insight into Company Zero, and Jake as well. Which is very exciting. He's obviously a very intelligent guy, and he's been a fantastic custodian of the Decred Holdings Group. He's managed our funds very well. I trust this guy a lot, and I'm very, very proud to be able to say that he is overseeing this so far. He's done a fantastic job. But if anybody has any kind of like final questions, we can go over those. And if not, I guess we can wrap it up. It's been a fantastic hour and 15 minutes. It's been a lot of fun. It's been great. Everybody looks nice. Jake's hair's on fleek.
Well, there is one thing I'd like to add. The Coin Artist puzzle does go live with the release.
Yes.
And currently it is valued at, I want to say, over $8,000. So there's over 500 Decred in there. And I know a little bit about this puzzle. I helped verify that it works. And there's definitely, you're not going to need to be a computer scientist or a hacker or something to be able to solve this. I think anybody, it's kind of meant for anybody to be able to have a shot.
The people's puzzle.
The people's puzzle.
The people's puzzle. For us, by us. Everybody was so excited about the first puzzle because everybody could contribute, and I still remember, of course, Tyler and I think knew the solution, but I was like, whoa, this is so cool. Like we can hide, this image inside, like this is like Inception, and like, I feel like Leonardo DiCaprio right now. Like I'm like diving in and I'm like doing all this. I feel like a straight up hacker. And that was really cool. So this puzzle is, the community is going to come together like that again. And, these other puzzles had big rewards, and it's fantastic to bring these brilliant minds into the Decred community that were able to solve those puzzles. But anybody can solve this. I mean, anybody watching this video right now has an opportunity to win over $8,000 US, which is pretty crazy. And you know what? 500 is enough to have tickets and see them vote every couple of days, which is really cool. So, we do encourage whoever wins. Of course, it's your money. That is a lot of money. If you want to pay off your mortgage or whatever with it, that's your prerogative, and we want you to do that. But I mean, if you want to begin staking and have a voice in this community, we'd really love to have you here, whoever you are, future winner of the mad cash from the puzzle prize.
Yeah, turn your Decred into more Decred.
Yeah, more Decred, racks on racks, Decred on Decred. It's a good place to be. Now, we've kind of already summarized the episode. I know I've had a lot of fun today. We have been talking to Charlie Lee as a future guest. It's not 100% confirmed yet. We need to kind of work out the details, but we think it'd be really cool to get him on here, kind of talk about proof of activity, why he originally wrote about it, and, what kind of why did he shield Decred so hard, I will say,
why is he such a big member in our community?
yeah,
still?
and seriously, Charlie's in our Slack channel every day, usually trolling people, which is fine. I do like to dabble myself, but yeah, he's an awesome guy. We're, as I said last time, we're very fortunate to have him as a community member. In this project, he has definitely contributed more than his fair share. So if anybody does not have any final questions, I think we will wrap this up. We'll give you guys about 15 seconds to say something not ridiculous in the chat box. Maybe we can address it.
Yeah. Well, Jake, do you have any final last words?
No, do you have any closing thoughts? Or
yeah, closing thoughts. There you
go. I was thinking about how to best phrase this, but maybe we could rent a cat.
Yes.
That's it. That's all I got. I'm out of material. And on a high note.
All right.
Okay, guys. Well, it has been a fantastic day. Tyler, it's always a pleasure to have you here as a host of this show. I had a lot of fun. You guys are bros, and it was great to hang out with you. To the audience, hit that like button. Share this video. We want everybody to see this video, see what a cool guy Jake is. I think this is the first time you get to see Jake just be himself, and he is definitely a cool guy. And if you come by Slack, he's there often if you want to hang out with him and talk to him. He does love it when the community sends him direct messages. So, if you feel inclined, go ahead and reach out. But anyway, this is
don't be inviting people to PM me. That's too much. That's too much. We can chat in the channel.
Yeah, JK on that. But he is in the channel. He is in the channel. Reach out to him. Make sure to bust his chops about that cat that he lied about. I'm honestly pretty upset about that. And we will see you guys on episode 3 of the Decred Assembly next week. That is going to be Sunday at 6 p.m.